Hey, what's happening, Gothamites? K-Wing here, and today we're talking about the legendary comic Hush. Why? Because I saw the animated movie of the same name, and it sucked. So it's time to learn stuff while punching crime in the face. This is Arkham Wednesday. You know, I'm actually pretty surprised I've never done a lore video on Hush. It's one of my favorite comic arcs of all time, and it's not even 20 years old yet. Written by Jeff Loeb and drawn by Jim Lee, Hush became a commercial and award-winning success with its very first issue in 2002 for DC Comics, featuring a host of Batman villains and heroes in every issue. Now keep in mind, this video you'll learn about the story of that famous tale, not a character overview of Hush himself. We'll save that for another time. Since the new animated movie is really confusing people over why Hush is such a great story, this needs to be done. So let's dive into it. Now Hush is a sprawling mystery book and an emotional journey that Bruce did not really recover from all the scars that he got during this caper, due to being attacked by all fronts: mind, body, and his spirit, and his love life. Our story begins with Batman answering a call for help. A little boy has been taken hostage, and the kidnappers are demanding millions or the child dies. The FBI warns Batman not to interfere because they've got this. Oh, really? But being the world's greatest detective that he is, he doesn't listen to them. Arriving at the Gotham docks, he cuts the power to the ship that is supposedly holding the child and begins to pretty much take out all the unsuspecting thugs one by one, using his stealth skills that would make a ninja jealous. After arriving at the boy's location, Batman takes out some plastique from his utility belt and blasts the door down and saves the kid. Everything is going like clockwork, until the man behind the abduction appears, Killer Croc, and he is mad. Croc yells, "You shouldn't have come here, Batman! This doesn't concern you!" It does now, and the two of them have this epic fight inside of the ship at Gotham Harbor. Unknown to Batman, the money has now been stolen. After KOing Jones, the FBI arrives to clean up, and Bats is not happy. Using his heat vision, he's able to track the thief who has stolen the ransom money. And it's an old friend he hasn't seen for some time, Catwoman. After catching up to the female thief, she retorts, "What took you so long?" Batman chases Catwoman like old times through the city, all the while having an inner monologue about the events that have happened so far, saying how stealing someone else's take is not Selina's style, nor is Croc kidnapping children. Someone is pulling the strings, but who? Sticking to the shadows, a lone figure watches the two costume freaks racing after one another. Just before Batman is able to nab Catwoman, his line snaps and he plummets to the ground below. Unable to reach his spare grappling hook in time, he uses his cape to slow down his descent as best he can to lessen the impact. Now, any other part of Gotham, mind you, would have had a gargoyle or a ledge for him to recover from this deadly dive. But not this part of the city, for he's right above Crime Alley. Catwoman looks back in horror as Batman lands with a sickening crunch in the alleyway. Oracle is actually monitoring Bruce's life signs and isn't getting a response from him. Also, various heat signatures are popping up all around the downed Batman, and Babs sends out an emergency distress call to the Bat family. Luckily, Huntress is nearby and answers a call just in time. Not too worried about all the goons approaching the Dark Knight, she easily dispatches every single one of them. After placing Batman in the Batmobile, she goes about her nightly patrol, unaware that above them, the figure wrapped in bandages has been watching the whole thing transpire. Elsewhere, in a rooftop garden high above Gotham City, Catwoman arrives with the money and hands it to Poison Ivy. In the Batcave, Alfred is doing his best to patch up Bruce like old times, but it doesn't look good. The damage is too severe for Alfred's skills. I mean, Batman has a fractured skull after all, and even though Alfred is an amazing field medic, well, there's not much he can really do. But even though Batman is completely unconscious, he uses Morse code to tap out a name: Thomas Elliot. Because even a totally unconscious Batman is still able to communicate with his butler. Maybe he asked for some fishy swirl, I don't know. Nightwing and company then come up with an idea to stage a car crash so that Bruce Wayne can get admitted to Gotham General and have emergency brain surgery by Thomas Elliot, the childhood friend of Bruce Wayne. And if you're wondering who Thomas Elliot is, I just told you, he's the childhood friend of Bruce Wayne. And, you know, during a time in Bruce's life, it wasn't all about grief and revenge. He had a best buddy named Tommy. They got in all kinds of mischief together and were thick as thieves until one day, Tommy's parents were in a horrible car crash. Bruce promised his friend that, hey, my dad can totally save your parents. But Thomas was only able to save Tommy's mom. Enraged by the loss of his father, Tommy punched Bruce for lying to him. Then you flash back to the present, and Thomas has successfully saved Bruce's life. Because he's like the ultimate plot armored surgeon or something, I don't know. So yeah, the brain surgery goes perfect, and Brucey won't be a vegetable now. Alfred is so happy. I mean, not that he would mind Bruce, you know, drooling into a cup, but it would make for defending Gotham really messy to have Batman not able to be, well, functional. Days later, not listening to Alfred or the Bat family, Batman goes back to action, after only being probably a day or so of bed rest. While everyone else would need at least 2 to 3 weeks or maybe a month from recovering from surgery like that, Batman needs 2 nights, folks. Remember, this is the same guy that had his back broken by Bane and returned after, what, 9 months? Like, it never happened? Sometimes you just gotta love comics. And, unlike Babs, he didn't have, like, a special thing installed in his spine so he could trick his brain to walking again. That was just pure bat recovery action. Although, probably today they would use a microchip, because easy that way, I guess, right? Anyway, so Batman is back doing what matters most, continuing the mission, because that's, you know, all he really does. So the case resumes. At Arkham, Batman confronts Killer Croc, and Jones ain't listening. He breaks out of his cell and heads to the sewers connected to Arkham. And if you played Arkham Asylum, then, well, you would totally know that. Pretty much he demands to know where his money is, and Batman is not worried about Croc escaping. And this, well, it wasn't really controversial, but if you were talking about it today, people might, like, raise an eyebrow, like, he did what now? So, unknown to Wallen Jones, a tracking device was actually placed inside Croc's spine by the police. And Batman happens to use it to, signal in where Croc is going. Elsewhere, back at stately Wayne Manor, a car from Pennsylvania pulls up. And no, it's not mine. I drive a Jeep. A man's mobile car thing. Anyway, the mystery caller is actually Thomas Elliot, who is making a special house call to make sure that Gotham's craziest bachelor is taking it easy for once. I actually remember when doctors did that, you know, before insurances tied their hands. Where was I? Oh, right. Alfred responds that Master Bruce is with a lady tonight, Tommy. And Tom is like, well, that's too bad, Alf. Tell Bruce he's playing a dangerous game and needs his rest. Then he drives off into the night all suspicious-like. And Alfred's just kind of like, I wish the Master would do what his friend tells him, but he's pig-headed and dumb, so he won't. Somewhere else in Gotham, the Batmobile roars down the streets, hot on the heels of Killer Croc, until all of a sudden the front tire of the Batmobile explodes and sends the Dark Knight hurtling off the road. Dazed and very annoyed, the Dark Knight stumbles out of his crashed vehicle and talks to himself, because that's totally sane, right? He mostly talks about what happened and how it being completely impossible, considering you would need a special type of ballistic to bypass his Kevlar tires, so he's not happy. He orders Oracle in a gruff way to not lose Croc. And she's like, what's wrong with the Batmobile? Don't talk about my car right now. Yeah, that's pretty much, you know. So anyway, I'm not sure who blew out the tires or if they ever talk about it. But years later, I remember a follow-up story with Jason Todd. And during this part of the Hush storyline, he actually did mess with Batman and blow out his tires and stuff. But just make a mental note of that, because we'll probably be talking about Red Hood this year or next year. So Catwoman is wandering around the greenhouse when an angry Killer Croc appears and demands to know where his money is. Here, kitty, kitty. Catwoman says she gave it to Ivy, and Croc's like, you're lying. And because Ivy told me that you had it, Selina. And just as he's about to eat Catwoman's face, Batman arrives and tells Jones that they're all being played after doing a bat punch to his face. And Croc tells Batman, the money was to fix me. Something is seriously wrong with... But before he can finish, the night sky lights up with a group of military helicopters shooting at the group on top of the roof. Croc attacks only to be netted off and carried away like a fish that's out of water. And Batman thinks to himself about who really is behind this. All the while, the Bandage Man continues to watch from the shadows. Because, I don't know, it's just something mysterious that they do. They're like, oh, who's this guy? Batman doesn't notice him. Although, if you read the comic, Batman actually turns around because he thinks someone's there. And when he looks again, the Bandage Man is gone. Whoa. That's Hush, the comic. That's how good it is. Just buy the comic, okay? 6 nights ago, and with no trace of Ivy, Croc, or Catwoman, Selina sneaks up behind Batman and says, I know where Ivy is. She's in Metropolis. But I want to tag along, so I want my revenge. And Batman's like, thanks, but no. And Selina is very persistent. She gets up in his grill and puts her arms on his chest and asks him, aren't you a little curious? And Batman says nothing and then kisses her under the moonlight sky with a kiss so passionate, so pure, so loving that it would make the Princess Bride jealous. Probably would. I mean, it's an iconic scene in the comic. Makes a really cool poster, too, if you can find it for Hush. After they, break off from the kissy face, he gives her a special ring, which he jokes around, oh, it's that serious? And he's like, that ring will allow you to contact me. So when you find her, give me a ring. Oh, wait, no, that sounded... You know what? I guess we'll keep going with that, but that was kind of corny. The following day, Bruce arrives in Metropolis. Unlike the movie, Wayne doesn't need an excuse to visit the city. He owns some of it, like the Daily Planet and some other things, maybe a Starbucks or two. So yeah, anyway, Soups, in a sense, kind of works for Batman if you really think about it, because he's an employee of the Daily Planet, so that means Batman writes Superman checks, you know? That's kind of funny. I like teasing Superman fans, it's fun. At the airport, Bruce meets his buddy Tommy, who shares a cab with him, and the two renew their besties-ness and, talk about old times. After Tommy's dad and mom died, I guess, Bruce's dad took him and Tommy to a medical convention, because if you didn't know this, both Thomas Elliot and Bruce Wayne at one point in their lives wanted to be doctors, because, Thomas Wayne was pretty cool, and Bruce wanted to become a doctor as well, but, well, that wasn't his fate, now was it? Tommy, on the other hand, was so inspired by what Thomas Wayne was able to do that he honored his life and became a doctor. So that's how that works out, and, Bruce became a crazy billionaire playboy who jumps off rooftops at night. So, total contrast between the two guys here in the cab talking about the past. So anyway, back to the medical convention. Bruce and Tommy are, hanging out, and the dad says, don't go anywhere. Bruce, I want you and Tom to stay put. Because I'm going to go in the hotel and write down that we're here, so don't run off anywhere in Metropolis, because it's a big city, and it's not as safe as Gotham. I'm sorry, that's just... Thomas, you're funny. So during the trip, and waiting outside with Alfred... Or maybe Alfred gets peanuts or something. I don't remember. But the Green Lantern, Alan Scott, appears in action, battling the Icicle in Metropolis, who's a ice villain from the heyday, the Golden Age, I think. Yeah, pretty sure it's the Golden Age. So they're fighting, and Bruce and Tommy are like, whoa, what's going on? So they're watching that. And then Bruce tells Tommy, hey, don't tell my dad what happened with this, okay? And Tom is like, totally, dude, stick a needle in it. Meaning, like, it's their thing. I don't know, they're weird, okay? Afterwards, both boys get in trouble and have to spend the rest of the trip hanging out in the hotel room by themselves. Which, I mean, me personally, I hated being dragged around to conventions. I had to go to religious conventions, and they were never fun. All the kids were miserable. I was miserable. Couldn't bring my Game Boy. Oof, I didn't enjoy it. Also, I almost died, like, whitewater rafting, so... Not a really great memory of any type of, like, conventions, other than game ones. Game ones I went with Amber, and I was married, so it was better. But the ones with a kid, it was just not the type of vacation I wanted. So I can relate to Tommy and Bruce, you know, mostly, but I would have fun just hanging out in the hotel room watching cartoons. So, I mean, this wouldn't really be a punishment to me. But they hang out in the window, and they just are hoping to see another superhero fly by, and it doesn't really happen. And if you're wondering, wow, they were really good friends, so what happened to their friendship? Well, tragedy struck again for, you know, the Wayne boys, or whatever. They were basically like brothers. So shortly after this trip, Bruce lost his parents in an alleyway, and you know the story. It's sad. But because he was so depressed as a little kid, he broke off all friendships that he had and just totally closed himself off to the world. So he and Tommy were no longer really friends. It's very sad. I mean, it hurts. Hurts my chest. The feelings that Tommy had to go through. Why? So anyway, after recalling that fun memory, before leaving, Thomas says, "You need to take care of yourself better. You're not Superman, you know. You got a fractured skull, buddy, and you need some rest and R&R." And Bruce is like, "Yeah, whatever. Maybe I'll stop by a spa or something." Tommy just kind of rolls his eyes like, well, I'll catch you around, Bruce." And he's like, Bruce is like, "Yeah, stick a needle in it, because that's important." So stopping by the planet, Bruce flirts with Superman's wife, because that man has no fear of anything, even flying aliens with super strength. Don't cause the Batman any concerns. He then leaves with Perry White to grab some drinks, because it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon somewhere in the world, right? The Kents, meanwhile, meaning Lois and Clark, are curious what Batman is doing here in Metropolis, because there is no Justice League business that they're aware of. She also reminds her husband that even though Bruce is a little batty, you're still good friends. So do your tights and flights thing and see if you can help Bruce out. And Superman's like, "Yes, dear." And he goes off to help his Bat buddy, because this is pre-52 Superman. This is the good Superman, not new 52 Superman that's just a self-centered jerk. This is the one that you want to look up in the sky and be like, "That's Superman." So this was my Superman, okay? Little Boy Scouty, but he's a good guy at heart, so I can appreciate that. Also, I love Lois and Clark being married, so it was all kinds of feels for me as a kid and young adult. Over at LexCorp, Batman visits Talia al Ghul, the acting head of Lex's company, since, you know, he's basically president of the US now. Scary time, but it happened, but had some really good comic arcs because of that. See Batman, Superman, Public Enemies. Really good book. He also asks his old flame about a plant hormone because he thinks Ivy is here in Metropolis, but Talia's like, "What?" She also notices a slight change in Batman's demeanor, and she doesn't like it. She says she'll help him anyway, but she notices a woman's perfume. And she said, "You know what? Okay, I'll do this for you, but you have to come back and give me a social call next time you arrive in Metropolis." And he's like, "Whatever." Catwoman pages him, like she was told, using that ring thingy, which sets off Batman's utility belt buzzer or pager or something. He didn't have a cell phone back then. Most people use pagers, so... She then tells him that Ivy put her under mind control, and it's time for payback. And Selina says she'll meet Bats at Ivy's hideout. Catwoman pretends to still be under Pam's control when she sees her again, but Ivy doesn't fall for it. The two women have a catfight, and Selina actually gains the upper hand, until Batman has to save her from a viney death. Ivy is pretty impressed that Catwoman has a champion of her own, because so does Ivy. And Batman's like, "Oh no, not him. I hate this city." And Superman comes crashing through the wall like it's made of popsicle sticks, destroying everything around him, and ripping up the building and putting it down by the docks of Metropolis. And then he tells Batman, "Back off." And Catwoman asks, "Tell me you have a plan for fighting this guy, right?" And Batman's like, "Yes." And then they jump into Metropolis Harbor. After swimming inside the lead-lined sewers of Metropolis, he tells Catwoman to head to the Daily Planet for a snatch and grab mission. She then kisses him and says, "Well, you might not be able to do that later, because you'll probably be hamburger meat." She then rushes off while Batman puts on his kryptonite ring and awaits the entrance of the Man of Steel. After uppercutting Superman, he tells Clark, "I filled the tunnels with gas, Clark. One spark from your heat vision will destroy half a city block. And you know what building we're under." He then continues to attack Superman without any delays. Afterwards, he back grapples out of the way, just before Superman can punch him, saying he lied about the gas main. And Supes isn't happy because he hits like a power box underneath Metropolis and gets a real charge out of that. After he comes up from the ground, Superman says, "That hurt." And he's ready to end this now. But then Bat says, "Hey, look up." On top of the Daily Planet, Catwoman has Lois and then pushes her off the building like a crazy person. And Bruce says, "You can save her, or you can let Ivy control you." And Superman catches Lois in the nick of time. Afterwards, the two heroes basically have a chat like nothing ever happened. Although, I would be pretty angry with Batman for, like, pushing my wife off a building, because what if Superman didn't catch her? Then that would have been not good. So later, using Crypto the Superdog, yes, Crypto's in this book, they track down Ivy at another one of her bases outside Metropolis. Thinking that the case is officially over, Superman, who doesn't know any better, takes Ivy back to Arkham. Watching from not far away is once again the mystery bandaged man, who is actually looking at Batman and Superman's friendship and is not happy. Days later, back in Gotham City, Bruce and Selina attend an opera with Thomas Elliot. All is going mostly well, until Harley Quinn takes the stage and has her gang hold up the entire audience. Then leaps onto the balcony and tries to attack Bruce Wayne, mentioning how Brucey's date looks kind of familiar, asking if she's ever been to Arkham, and Selina says, nope, never done that. Harley then spots some really fine jewelry that Tommy has, which happens to be his late mother's jade pendant, and she wants it. She then starts firing at the booth like a crazy girl who just wants some bling, and Selina calls out to Bruce! But Bruce is gone, and she says under her breath, "Men," realizing that it's now up to her to save Tommy and Tommy's date, because Bruce is a coward and ran away, which Selina is not happy. Seconds later, Batman arrives on the scene and faces Harley Quinn, until a sandbag happens to land right on his head and causes him to go all off balance because, you know, of his fall that happened at the beginning of the book. So that serious blow to his head means that Bats wasn't at 100% yet, and Harley takes advantage of his dizzying situation and almost kills him right then and there, only to be saved by Catwoman before Harley can pull the trigger. Selina then gives chase after Harley, who's using like these weird spring things in her boots, but she's not as acrobatic as Quinn and nearly falls to her death. She's rescued from becoming street pizza thanks to Batman, but then passes out from her injuries. Tommy then tries to tackle Harley, who is so ticked off that she took his necklace. He's like, "Give me back my necklace! That's mine! Mine!" So he's kind of going a little crazy, and then he races after her into the alleyway, and Batman makes it to the alley and then hears a sickening single gunshot fill the night sky, and sees the Joker standing over Thomas's still body. Filled with utter rage, Batman loses it and attacks the Joker, relentlessly nearly killing the clown prince of crime, shouting, "You killed Jason! You hurt Babs! And now you've killed Tommy! Bruce Wayne's best friend! I've had it! This ends now!" Joker, who's getting the crap beat out of him, is like, "Stop! Wait! Not like this! Aha! Stop! Oh! Oh!" Harley can't even pry Batman off the Joker, who has a death grip on him, and she's cast aside like nothing. Then Catwoman lassos her whip around Batman's neck, and he grabs the whip and pulls her to him and then headbutts her, knocking her out. Joker cries for help, because Batman keeps strangling him like, "Ugh!" And finally, Jim Gordon arrives on the scene, and to my knowledge, this is the closest that Batman has ever come to actually killing the Joker. And it was the last straw. Seeing Tommy dead, it just flipped the switch, and all these memories of things that Joker's done that are just evil, the death of Jim Gordon's wife, Barbara being paralyzed, Jason, and so many victims, Batman is just done. He's done. Luckily for Joker, Jim Gordon gets Batman to stop, and Joker just kind of crawls away sobbing in a corner in agony. "I didn't do it! It wasn't me! This is a bad joke! Oh!" And Jim escorts the Batman out of the alley before, you know, I guess an investigation can happen. Once again, the bandaged figure looks on and flips a coin this time, and says the Joker is innocent, Batman. Don't you get the joke? And then the audience is like, wait a second, Two-Face's Hush? Say what? A few days later, Bruce Wayne buries another friend. Back at the Batcave, Nightwing and Bruce discover that the Joker actually is innocent. This time, and didn't kill Thomas Elliot. And they plan on tracking down who really did do it. But just then, the crime alert goes off on the Batcomputer. And Nightwing says, you know what, I'm going to tag along because you're kind of crazy right now. And Batman's like, fine. And so off they go chasing the Riddler to see if it's connected to Tommy's death or not. The former Boy Wonder takes his time to talk to Bruce during the long ride into Gotham about him and Selina, saying that, you know, if Bruce really wants this relationship to work out, he needs to be honest with her about his alter ego and his feelings. Women like that. And Batman's just kind of like, huh, your love life? Which, yeah, I mean, come on. But I believe at this point in the continuity, Dick and Babs were kind of a thing now. I might be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that it was around the early 2000s, mid-2000s that they were a couple. So Dick would give other superheroes relationship advice because, well, he's Dick Grayson. What more do you want? But eventually, you know, Batman's like, you know what? This is none of your business, and you're stupid. But the two track down the Riddler and defeat him, but something is bothering the Dark Knight. Is Riddler also involved in this, or did he just pick up the wrong night to rob a bank? Feeling very uneasy about this, Batman checks Riddler's van and finds traces of ash from the Lazarus Pit? What is going on? Is what Batman thinks. Now, for this part, there are actually two panels that play out in the comic, telling a parallel story that's happening at the exact same time, you know, in both the continuity and in real time. So probably like 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, at two different places. So just try to picture that in your mind as best you can as we're running around here in Gotham. Okay? Okay. So, on one panel, you have the Bandaged Man and Joker meeting in Arkham about something. And at the same time, on another panel, on the same issue, is Batman and Catwoman meeting at a zoo to talk. Both the Bandaged Man and Batman reveal who they are to their respective parties. Both with surprising results. Harvey Dent surprises the Joker, and Batman tells Selina he is Bruce Wayne. Now, the Hush story liked to do various red herrings as to who Hush's real identity was, because you don't really find out in this story at all who he is. You get hints at who he really is, but it's not until later books that feature Hush where it's revealed, yeah, that was totally Hush. So, great mystery, Jeff Loeb. Just fantastic. We need more Batman stories like this. We really do. So anyway, sometime later, Batman plans to go and visit Ra's al Ghul in the League of Shadows to find out more about the Lazarus Pit situation and who the person in Gotham was that used it. But first, he needs a little insurance on his side, so he kidnaps his ex-girlfriend Talia al Ghul. Still really never know why he does this, but he leaves Catwoman to watch her, which that's not a smart move. He and Ra's then have a really cool duel in the desert sands, and at the same time, Lady Shiva has arrived in Gotham to rescue Talia from Catwoman. But Talia is the one who ends up saving Catwoman from Lady Shiva, who is the best martial artist in the DC Universe, and nearly kills Selina. After besting Ra's, Batman finds out that this lead isn't going to go anywhere and just returns to Gotham really annoyed. But before he goes, Ra's gives him a little bit of info he can use, hinting that possibly a ghost from Batman's past has returned to haunt him and to destroy him. And Batman's like, what? Elsewhere, a man visits Jim Gordon late at night. That man is Harvey Dent, whose face is now cured, and he's seeking Jim's help to save Batman from the Bandaged Mystery Man. Ooh, getting good, isn't it? A few nights pass, and Batman and Catwoman are in the Batcave discussing tonight's patrol, when Tim Drake surprises both of them and attacks Selina. Eventually, he tells Tim, I told her who I am, and that was my choice. Angered, Catwoman leaves the cave, and Tim looks at Batman. I guess she bought it. So the two of them then follow her unseen, trailing Catwoman to see if she is legit or not. So much for trust, right? Actually, Trust should be the name of the book, not Hush. While Catwoman is blowing off steam riding a motorcycle, Huntress arrives out of nowhere and attacks her. Before jumping in to aid Catwoman, Batman tells Robin to stay here and watch carefully to see what I can't see. He then throws Catwoman a vial to basically get Huntress out of her kick or whatever's happening to her, probably drugged. On the rooftop above, Robin is watching, unaware that the bandaged man is behind him and sucker punches the Teen Wonder. Master crime fighter indeed, Timothy. But in Tim's defense, he's not really a master martial artist. That's Dick and Batman, and even Jason was the fighter. Tim, pre-52, was the brilliant detective, and his weakness was combat, which made some pretty compelling and interesting Robin stories to read, because you could actually picture yourself being Robin. Well, I mean, unless you're not, like, super smart like he is, because he couldn't really fight. I mean, he couldn't. So anyway, below what's happening with Batman, Catwoman, and Huntress is Scarecrow arrives and attacks all the heroes. But Batman is unfazed and grabs Crane, saying, "It's you! You're the one profiling everyone!" But before Crane can say anything, a batarang knocks him out cold. And Batman spins around to see a bandaged man holding Tim Drake. Do you even care about this imposter, Batman? And Batman roars, "Who are you?" And the man removes his bandages to reveal that it's Jason Todd. Catwoman, not wasting a second, leaps into action and saves Tim, while Jason and Batman fight it out in the cemetery near Jason's grave. The symbolism of this scene just gives me goosebumps. Jim Lee is a genius, a pure artistic genius. Awesome scene. Back to the fight. Jason continues to taunt Batman about how he failed to keep him alive, and it was very easy for me to get everyone involved because they all hate you and want revenge. The answer to my identity has been staring at you in the face the entire time, old man. And Batman thinks back, falling in a crime alley. The tire that was blown was the same tire that Jason stole and boosted off the Batmobile when they first met. Batman realizes that this could be Jason, but part of him is like, no, this is impossible. Jason is dead. This has to be an imposter, because he hasn't called me Bruce yet. Eventually, the fake reveals himself to be none other than Clayface, and he escapes as he crumbles into dust. Frustrated, Batman is stumped, since all the clues actually did point to Jason's involvement, being the mastermind and being the bandaged man. But Jason, if he's not back, who is it? Who is the masked man? Batman goes to speak to Oracle to try to make sense of this whole mystery. Eventually, she's like, when you were dying, what made you think of contact Thomas Elliot? Why him? And Batman's like, what do you mean? She mentions how images of Tommy had been found before Batman was, falling to his death, and subliminally messing with his mind for weeks. And only one person could have done this and gained access to the Bat computer. Harold, a former Batman employee from way back in the 1990s comics, who, if I'm not mistaken, was a whiz with computers and fixing Batman's equipment, who also was not happy when he was kicked out of the Batcave by the second Batman, Jean-Paul Valley. Harold was the one who set Batman up? Bruce asks Oracle to contact him and set up a meeting. Later that night, they meet under the bridge of Gotham, and the mute Harold speaks. And Batman is like, "You can talk? But why did you betray me?" But before Harold can even tell Batman who the mystery man is, he's killed right in front of Batman's eyes. And then the villain says, "Oh, was that a friend of yours, Bruce?" while continuing to shoot at Bruce. The Dark Knight then says, "That's it! No one else dies! This ends tonight!" and does a flying karate kick into Hush's chest. And then he sees it. The jade medallion of Thomas Elliot's mother around Hush's neck. Then Hush says, "Do you think it's by chance we're on this bridge tonight, Bruce?" And Batman thinks back and realizes this is a bridge that Elliot's parents died on. Just then, the Batmobile explodes behind him and sends Batman hurtling into a wall. Thomas then says, "It's your father's fault! I was supposed to inherit everything, you fool! But my mother lived! Now you pay!" But before he can kill Batman, Harvey Dent and Jim Gordon arrive just in time. Hush is stunned and says, "This wasn't the arrangement!" And Harvey says something cool and then shoots Hush twice in the chest. Thomas then stumbles back from the impact and falls off the bridge to his death into the waters below. But Batman is going crazy at this point and needs to know if it really is Tommy, or maybe it could be Jason, or somebody else under the mask. Without even thinking, Batman dives after the bandaged man into the water below, where he finds no trace of him whatsoever. Defeated, tired, and just annoyed, Batman comes out of the water, and Jim talks to Harvey. Why did you do that? And Dent replies, to protect Batman. Yes, Thomas fixed my face. And I didn't know that a famous brain surgeon could actually repair plastic surgery, but comics! Anyway, he says that Thomas did all this for revenge and hired all of Batman's greatest foes to destroy him this year. And that was pretty much it. Can it really be that was everything? Weeks later, Bruce Wayne is pondering things in the Batcave, and he finally learns who the mastermind really is, and goes to speak with him in Arkham Asylum. Who is the mastermind behind everything? It's the Riddler. What we learn from this encounter is Riddler was dying of brain cancer. He first met Dr. Thomas Elliot and was being treated, so to speak. But then Thomas told him about the Lazarus Pit. To be honest, folks, it's unknown how a doctor and a crazed puzzle nut got past Ra's al Ghul's security to use a Lazarus Pit, but that's neither here nor there or ever explained. It makes for a good story, though, right? Even though it wouldn't be possible. Anyway, Riddler created the identity of the mystery bandaged man, who he calls Hush, and used everyone, including Superman, against Batman. Which, yeah, you would have to be really clever because Hush was always several steps ahead of Batman. There's only two villains that I know of that can do that. Riddler and Ra's al Ghul. Nigma pretty much mocks Batman and calls him Bruce to his face. But Batman isn't scared. He tells Riddler that if everyone knows the answer to the riddle of his identity, then the Riddler knows that that riddle is worthless. Also, Ra's is still looking for the person responsible for using his pits. So, checkmate. But something is still troubling Batman as he leaves Arkham Asylum that night, and he asks to meet with Catwoman to discuss their future. She asks him what's wrong, and Batman says, "What if our love was orchestrated by the Riddler and his schemes, and we're unaware of it?" She says, "No, this is real. This is love. This is real, Bruce." And then he stammers, "But what if?" And Catwoman just says lovingly, "Hush." This causes Batman to completely lose his mind. "Why did you say that name, Selina? Why?" And she's like, "Bruce, you're hurting me. Stop. Let go." But Batman can't stop. His mind is just racing out of control. Why did Selina say that phrase when Batman had just learned it for the first time a few seconds ago? Is she in on this? What is going on? Eventually, Selina leaves and breaks up with him because, one, she thinks he's even crazier than she thought, and two, he can't trust her. And until he can trust her, they can't be together, which is heartbreaking. The last picture that you see in the book is a beautiful illustration by Jim Lee, with Batman looking down, sad, defeated, and just distraught, because he can't ever trust anyone. So happiness and love is not something that Batman can ever have. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of Hush. I wanted to give you guys and gals the story of the comic Hush. Sometime this year we can talk about the character or heart of Hush, but because I saw that mediocre Hush Batman animated movie, reading the graphic novel helped ease a lot of the pain of seeing that film twice to write some reviews. And I wanted to share that story with all of you tonight. So I hope you guys appreciated the Return of Arkham Wednesday. Sorry this video lasted a little bit longer, but I hope you enjoyed the story of Hush and you learned something about one of the most iconic stories the past almost 20 years. So thanks so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your night, and I will see you guys with the spoiler-free Hush review this weekend. God bless, and happy gaming.